Picture this. You're a kid again, standing in front of two giant glass doors. They slide open, and an entire universe explodes to life. A universe louder, brighter, and bigger than anything in your imagination. A place where dinosaurs roar, superheroes line the walls, and a Ferris wheel, an actual Ferris wheel, spins in the center of a toy kingdom built just for you. Now imagine that world suddenly vanishing. Not slowly, not over generations, but in one swift collapse. Toys R Us didn't just fall, it imploded. And the most shocking part? It wasn't because kids stopped loving toys. It was because the company that defined childhood never realized the danger closing in until it was already too late. To understand its rise, you have to go back to 1948, long before internet shopping carts, overnight shipping, or viral toy trends. A young World War II veteran named Charles Lazarus had a simple belief. No matter what else changes, people will always keep having children, and children will always want toys. He opened a small baby furniture shop in Washington, D.C., but it didn't take long for him to see a strange pattern. Parents were returning not for cribs, but for toys, new toys, more toys, as if kids were magnetically drawn to anything bright, loud, or plastic. Lazarus paid attention. He saw demand building like a tidal wave. And he didn't just ride the wave. He reshaped retail around it. He transformed his store into something revolutionary, a self-service toy supermarket, a place where kids could roam free, touching, grabbing, exploring. A place built not for parents, but for children. And that one decision ignited a movement. By the 1970s and 80s, Toys R Us wasn't just growing. It was dominating. Stores opened everywhere. Shelves soared to the ceiling. Jeffrey the Giraffe became a household icon. The jingle
I don't wanna grow up on a Toys R Us kid.
became a cultural anthem. And at the height of their empire, Toys R Us didn't just want to own the toy aisle. They wanted to own childhood itself. So, in 1996, they launched Babies R Us, a full-scale baby superstore selling everything from strollers to cribs to newborn essentials. The move was a massive success. Babies R Us quickly became the #1 baby retailer in America, pulling families into the Toys R Us ecosystem from the moment their child was born. For a brief period, it seemed like Toys R Us had locked down the entire life cycle of a kid, from newborn to toddler to teenager. Then the company even announced a bold move to cement its identity as the center of childhood. It would build a flagship store in Times Square. Not just a store, an attraction. Times Square was the crossroads of the world, crowded with tourists and glowing with non-stop publicity. Toys R Us wanted its presence there to scream one message. We are the epicenter of toys. When the store opened in 2001, it felt like a theme park. A massive animatronic T-Rex, a Barbie dream house, a lush indoor jungle, and towering above it all, a full-sized Ferris wheel turning under neon lights. It was grand, excessive, magical, and completely confident. But beneath all that confidence, cracks were starting to form. Cracks caused by something few people noticed at first. In the late 1990s and early 2000s, a small online retailer called Amazon began expanding beyond books. It was experimenting with categories: electronics, home goods, and yes, toys. Many companies panicked, unsure whether e-commerce was a fad or a revolution. Toys R Us saw a shortcut. Instead of building a strong online presence, they partnered with Amazon. In 2000, Amazon would handle all online toy sales for them. It seemed simple, efficient, cost-effective, a way to tap into the digital future without having to create it. But the decision was catastrophic. The partnership meant Toys R Us outsourced its digital identity at the exact moment online shopping was about to explode. Parents were beginning to look online before going to stores. Holiday shopping was shifting earlier every year. But Toys R Us didn't control the website carrying its own name. It didn't gather the data, it didn't adapt fast enough. It didn't innovate. And when Amazon eventually began selling toys from other sellers, breaking the exclusivity promise, Toys R Us sued. The lawsuit dragged on until 2004 and finally ended the partnership. But by that time, the damage was done. Amazon had already become the default place parents checked first, and Toys R Us was years behind in building the digital infrastructure it needed. After the breakup, Toys R Us scrambled to build its own online store, but the transition was rocky. Their first holiday season operating independently was a disaster. The company couldn't keep up with online orders, shipping times lagged behind competitors, and thousands of Christmas deliveries arrived late. Parents flooded customer service lines in frustration. Children woke up to empty stockings. The press hammered the company for failing the one job it had dominated for generations: delivering joy on time. That single holiday season exposed how unprepared Toys R Us was for the new age of retail dominance led by Amazon. Meanwhile, the physical world was shifting too. Walmart expanded aggressively, using ultra-low prices and massive stores to dominate toy sales. Target redefined itself with better design, cleaner aisles, and trendier toy displays. Amazon mastered convenience, free shipping, fast delivery, and reviews that guided parents through every purchase. And Toys R Us? It stayed still, not because it wanted to, but because something else was tightening around its neck. In 2005, the company was bought out in a massive leveraged buyout. On paper, it looked like a revival plan. But in reality, it strapped more than $5 billion of debt onto the company's back. Every year, hundreds of millions of dollars vanished just to pay interest. Money that should have built a competitive website. Money that should have modernized stores. Money that could have adapted the business for the new world. What made the competition even more brutal was that Toys R Us still had the potential to win. They had exclusive rights with manufacturers, relationships built over decades, and the ability to order inventory in massive volumes. Suppliers wanted Toys R Us to lead. But Walmart and Target leveraged their broader product lines to undercut toy prices, treating toys as loss leaders. Items they could afford to sell at razor-thin margins because customers would buy everything else while they were there. Toys R Us couldn't match those margins without investing in supply chain upgrades, but the crushing debt from the buyout made those investments impossible. Instead, Toys R Us became stuck, immobile, trapped in the past while the future sprinted ahead. Kids didn't stop loving toys. Parents didn't stop buying them. But Toys R Us was no longer the fastest, cheapest, or most convenient way to get them. Its stores grew older. Shelves felt emptier. The excitement faded. Making things worse was a rising trend called showrooming. Parents brought their kids into Toys R Us to physically see and test toys. But instead of buying them there, they snapped photos, compared prices online, and purchased from Amazon later. The stores became massive display rooms that generated no profit. As revenue dropped, maintenance budgets were slashed. Floors grew scuffed, lighting dimmed, and inventory sat unorganized in towering metal racks. The magic that once defined Toys R Us was slowly replaced by the cold, industrial feel of a warehouse pretending to be a wonderland. And even the Times Square flagship, still a tourist magnet, was becoming more of a relic than a revelation. Then came the symbolic blow. In 2015, after years of sinking finances and rising rent costs, the Times Square Toys R Us closed its doors. The Ferris wheel stopped. The dinosaur went silent. The landmark designed to represent the brand's eternal dominance became instead a monument to its decline. And although the public didn't yet know it, this was the beginning of the end. 2 years later, it happened. In 2017, Toys R Us filed for bankruptcy. The news sent shockwaves across generations because this wasn't just another retailer. This was the childhood store, the one people remembered, the one parents wanted to share with their kids. And when the collapse finally hit, it didn't spare the rest of the family. Babies R Us, once the crown jewel of the company's expansion, was dragged down with it. In 2018, every Babies R Us location in the United States closed its doors. For years, the brand had been the company's reliable anchor, but it simply couldn't survive the crushing debt, the competition from online retailers, and the bankruptcy storm that swallowed everything. And just like that, a store that millions of parents relied on for the earliest chapters of their children's lives vanished. The liquidation was heartbreaking. Empty aisles, clearance signs, employees wiping away tears as they dismantled displays they had known for years. And Jeffrey the giraffe, once a symbol of endless excitement, now stood lonely in farewell posters during the final days. In 2018, Toys R Us closed all U.S. locations. A kingdom built on imagination, erased. Small attempts at reviving the brand would follow. Tiny concept stores, partnerships, nostalgic relaunches. But the era of Toys R Us that millions grew up with was gone forever. And maybe that's the most tragic part. Toys R Us didn't fall because children outgrew it. It fell because the world around it evolved, and the company burdened by debt, trapped in old habits, and unprepared for the digital age couldn't evolve with it. Yet the memories remain. The sliding doors, the towering aisles, the Ferris wheel spinning under neon lights, the feeling that for a moment, you were entering a world made entirely for you. Its rise was magical. Its fall was devastating. And its legacy will live forever in the imaginations of those who once walked through its doors and felt, if only for a moment, that they never had to grow up. In the end, the story of Toys R Us and Babies R Us isn't just about a company that rose and fell. It's a reminder of how fast the world can change. And maybe that's the real lesson. Success is never permanent. No matter how beloved, how iconic, or how untouchable something seems, it only survives if it evolves. Thank you for watching. I hope you'll leave a like and consider subscribing for more deep dives just like this one. Your support helps these stories live on, even when the companies behind them don't.